This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of the Killingley Town Council, and we're calling a special Town Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023, and it is currently 7:01 p.m. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. We'll move on in the agenda. Next item up, 3A, interview of board and commission applicants. We have none this evening, so we'll move on to item 4, citizen statements and petitions. Ms. Clory, did we have anything submitted?
None were submitted.
Thank you. If anyone would like to come up and make a comment, statement, or have a petition, you can come up to the podium, state your name and address. Just realize with a special town council meeting, any items discussed would have to be pertinent to things on this evening's agenda. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item up on the agenda is 5A, a resolution of the Killingley Town Council supporting the coalition against bigger trucks. Ms. Clory, could you go over this, please?
Sure. So this was an email that I had received with regards to federal legislation that was being considered around increasing the weight limit for trucks. Clearly, this coalition is in opposition. I did provide for you the proposed federal language, as well as the study that the organization had provided around what the potential impacts are for the blanket increase on those trucks for the trucks. So I had brought this to the chair and the vice chair as to whether or not they wanted to bring it forward to the body around submitting a letter supporting the coalition against bigger trucks.
Thank you. I will open up for questions, comments, discussion.
I read this, and I think this is one of those things that limits it to such a small percentage of trucks, because it has to be a 6-axle covered truck, which 99%, 98% of the trucks on the road are 5 axles. And if you read this, the state has to apply an application to use it, and then they have to keep records for 10 years on the accidents, where the accidents were, if there weren't. And I think it also says in here that the only ones that can do that have to have automatically applied braking systems on the vehicles, so this is a company that would want to do it would have to buy special equipment just to go on this. So that's all. What I found in reading it, it's so limited that I don't think the state of Connecticut or any New England state would sign an application to want to participate in it. But.
And my concern would be the heavier vehicles going over the bridges.
I'll turn the phone off.
The heavier vehicles going over the bridges and potential premature failure of the bridges, additional maintenance that could at some point come to the town.
Right, that would be a concern for it all, but I understand that part, and that is a big part of it, but I think that would limit it to so many trucks that would be able to participate in this, that you might see one a year come through here. But like I say, a six-axle truck is the majority of our 5s, and so that's just my comment.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would have a question for Kevin. So how does that compare, Kevin, to like 2 trailers? Because I don't know anything about it.
Well, the 2 trailers are still allowed, I think, to go to 80,000, but so that's spread out because they go by a bridge law. So you've got extra axles in the space there, spacing, so it puts less load on the bridge. But so these other ones would be the regular length of a trailer truck with another axle on the trailer, and they would be allowed to carry, I think, up to 94,000. It said, so it's another 14,000 pounds. And all those bridge laws go by the weight per axle that you're allowed to carry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would have my concerns with a vehicle that has more load capacity going over the bridges. I mean, we talk about our bridges already, how they're aging infrastructure, throughout the state and throughout our nation. We have aging infrastructure that hasn't been updated or in desperate need of repair and updates that you know, you take it, yeah, it might be a once in a while thing, but now you're putting a risk at that once in a while. What is the load that's going to cause that bridge to eventually just collapse? You know, it may not happen the first time that truck goes over it, but it definitely can cause damage that could be an issue later on. And that's, you know, you got to think about the safety of everybody, not just the once in a while thing.
If I may, currently, trucks are allowed to get overweight permits. So they're, you know, but that, they have to apply for a permit. They have to show their route and all of that kind of stuff. So there is, you know, it's not that larger vehicles are not allowed on our roadways. They have to do an overweight permit. This would just allow up to that level without any additional permitting. They would just be allowed by right. So just to put that out there.
Thank you.
Well, what about our town bridges? Would we have to now put a weight limit on all of those because of?
Well, we wouldn't necessarily have to put a weight limit on our town bridges, but as we inspect all of those bridges, we would have to take into account the potential for that higher weight limit on a more regular basis, as opposed to like as an overweight permit. So when they're looking at you know, spalling and those components, it may rise to needing a weight limit and repair action sooner, because we have that calculation changes by having to incorporate that higher by right truck limit, weight
But
limit.
see, but the overweight permits, they can also go over to town-owned bridges?
Yes, they can, if the bridge doesn't have a specified weight limit. And usually we only put weight limits when a bridge hits certain thresholds for at needing repairs. And I don't think that we have weight limits on any of our bridges at this point in time. They've all been passing those structural requirements. But, you know, should a bridge, abutments, or decking reach a point that structurally isn't meeting those thresholds, I had this happen when I was up in Putnam. We had to put a weight limit on a certain bridge until whatever repairs were required to bring it back up to meeting the structural threshold requirements to remove that weight limit. So it's all based on that structural engineering rating for every
Going
bridge.
up to a higher, I mean, what's allowed, if there's no weight limit, you follow, but then again, we're going higher with this.
Right, and that's where you have to, for that calculation for the structural integrity of the bridge, they would have to increase the weight limit for trucks on it as of right. So that would increase that it increases the thresholds of what the bridge has to be able to hold and maintain on a regular basis. So you could have bridges that meet the need for weight limit restrictions sooner, or you would meet them where otherwise you wouldn't have to run into that before you're making substantial repairs on them and then restricting them. So there is an impact, but you know, it's all part of that structural engineering calculation.
So I have a question. So I understand this is just the 6-axle right now, but when we're looking at, like, for instance, the electric vehicles, those are much heavier. And I know, like Freightliner, which holds 38% of the market on Class 8s, do you know if there's any movement to increasing the weight limits for, like, the tractor trailers that run all over? Because if they did that, that's a lot of infrastructure wear and tear. And that's, most of the roads aren't state and federal, they're towns. So if we had to deal with that, that would be a lot of money for all the, you know, municipalities across the country.
Yeah, so I think this legislation that was being proposed at the federal level was being proposed as a pilot, which tells me that they're looking to study the impact and then potentially see if it can be expanded. But again, there's no indication that they're actually going to expand that, or to what extent they're looking to expand that. This is just their initial proposals.
Because that's all I was thinking with this push to green and the, lowering the emissions. Those trucks are on average about 5,300 pounds heavier than a diesel truck. And if that went across the industry, that would be a huge burden on states across. So pilot program, it's a little scary.
Any further comments?
I guess the question I would have is, how our bridges in town, would they be able to handle that? I know you mentioned like there would be paths and things like that already established for those who get this permit to be overweight. Would our bridges be able to handle that, I guess is a better question.
So our bridges, yes, right now they can handle that. Is it going to depending on how much traffic we see on that, does it potentially add, deteriorate them quicker? Yes. Will we potentially see end of life on those bridges sooner? Potentially, right? So, to say that any of our bridges would be immediately compromised, I can't say that. I don't foresee that we're gonna see trucks like that going down Peep Toad.
No, I hope not. Really hope not.
I would say that bridge, would, probably be, a bridge that I wouldn't necessarily wanna, would probably, meet its, end of useful life a lot quicker. But, probably not gonna see that kind of traffic.
Right. No, that's just a thought there, because I mean, obviously we're kind of trying to use our crystal ball here and look into the future of what potentially could be the issues there, and and potential successes even. But that's just my concern, is ultimately our infrastructure and it aging out a lot sooner, which obviously would cost more towards taxpayers as well.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Has there been any talk of like tolls for towns, saying if you have this, can we
No.
get this?
Anything further? All those in favor, say aye.
You have to have a
wait,
motion.
That's right, we want a discussion without a motion. I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution of the Killenly Town Council supporting the coalition against bigger trucks.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Ms. Wakefield, second by Mr. Wood. We've already had discussion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain.
2 abstentions. Motion carries. Moving on the agenda, next item up is 5B, Town Manager Evaluation.
Make a motion to move item 5B to after executive session, item 7A.
I'll second.
All right, motion to move 5A until after executive session, made by Mr. Kurtula, seconded by Mr. Wood. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 6A, New Business, meeting with Historic District Commission and Staff Liaison Kathleen Thornton.
So as they come up to the table here, you're also going to note that Terry is online. So Terry, are you the chair of the Historic District Commission?
Yes, I'm the chair, and Maggie's is also a member of the Historic District.
Yep.
She's joined us too.
Yep, Maggie has joined us as well. So I just wanted to point out those 2 members are on, and I'm sorry, Jane is also a member of the Historic District Commission. So you have some members that are before you. I also included in your packet a recent communication that Terry had sent to the group, just highlighting the 3 distinct districts in town that are historic districts. Specifically, and I know that there's still, I think, 2 additional parcels that fall under the historic district's purview, but I did share that with you in your packet so you could visually see at least the specific districts. So feel free. just wanted to
Thank you.
outline that.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Can you just give us an update on what's been going on with the Historic District?
Yeah, well, we've just been meeting and, I think the last thing we talked about was, getting the parking, or not the parking, yeah, the bench, whatever, for the money that was left over from the first centennial. We purchased, a bench, and then I think we also got the plaque for that. That'll probably be installed sometime maybe in the spring or something. We have not had any, Al Weiss came to our last meeting to bring about his concerns, and we informed her about what the limitations of the jurisdiction of the Historic District Commission was. And then pretty much, that's pretty much been the major things. The only thing I ask of the town council is just to help us, with working with the planning, zoning, and planning department, because sometimes people come in getting permits to do work on their home. Their home is in the historic district or is historic property, they may not know to come to the Historic District Commission, so it'd just be nice if we get some help. I know we've talked about this before, they are willing to help. I just wanna keep reiterating that, squeaky wheel gets the oil, so to speak, so.
Thank you.
That's that.
Now, Ms. Colorio, does the planning department have anything in place where when someone's applying for permits, they have procedure where they start looking at historic district?
They do, and typically our, zoning, our planning and zoning staff, as well as our inland wetland staff, whenever they have an application, they always look to see, obviously, where it's located. If it's located in the historic district, they usually try and, notify Kathy, who is the staff liaison to the Historic District Commission, so that way, and they notify the individual, you're in a historic district, you might need to make application there as well. So we do try and make sure that they're aware of. So I'll reiterate, we'll make sure that everybody keeps that kind of, on the radar as they're going through those applications. If there's been anything that slipped through the cracks, please let me know, and I will make sure that I reiterate that. But they try and be really thorough. We try and make sure when people are coming in for an application that we give them all of the information so they're not blindsided by anything and they find out something 5 steps down the road that they should have gotten done. So they usually try and be cognizant of and check the historic district. I know Jonathan and Anne Marie and Allison are usually really on top of looking for those components. So I will reiterate.
Thank you. I will open up to town council. Any questions, comments? Mr. Wood?
Any one of you guys, you want to tell the council what the bench is for, who's in honor of? Just, feel free. We'll let Maggie do it?
Maggie, who's the bench for?
Oh, the bench is, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Go ahead.
Oh, good, because I'm not so swift on this. The bench is for Mary Dixon Pies, and she was the first woman she's considered the first woman in the United States to get a patent in her own right. She got the patent in 1809 for weaving straw with silk into a fabric that could have been used for bonnets, which were fashionable at the time. There is a sample of the weaving, actually 2 samples at the Killingly Public Library. So we do have an example of what the weaving was. She received a letter from Dolly Madison, who was First Lady at the time, congratulating her on getting the patent. And unfortunately, I guess records were burned in the patent office, so it's now impossible to get a copy of that patent. But, it's quite an accomplishment, and more women's things are being recognized.
Yeah, and that's why thank you, Maggie. I appreciate you
Oh, you're
bringing that up.
welcome.
That's why I want you guys to know it's not just they purchased a bench, but they purchased a bench in honor of her, and her accomplishments as well. And again, a Killingly resident who's done we've had a lot of Killingly residents that have done some great things. I gotta say, our Historic District Commission, especially with Maggie on there, I've learned a lot from these guys, and I've appreciated their candor and their willingness to educate me even on this stuff. They're a great group of people, and I think you've also done a few other things too, like help with Danielson with their doors, the Danielson Fire Department. And also you have a brochure in the lobby, correct? So, they've been busy.
And we have like 15,000 of those brochures, so if you know any place else.
That's what I was gonna say. The brochures were mailed to hundreds of homes, 100 years old. And that's how we got several
That's
new
right,
members
that's right.
to the commission. Those were mailed out last year.
We also got a lot of calls over at the historical center because they didn't quite get the difference between historic district and the historical center.
Mr. Grandelsky.
How about members? Is your board full, or do you have alternates available, or regular membership available, or what?
They're full. So
Okay.
after that brochure went out, that was the great advertising campaign for their commission. They had a lot of applicants at that time, and so yes, they filled the commission and all their alternates. So that commission is completely full. We need to have a few other commissions do public outreach like that.
That's what I was just gonna say. How do we do that?
I need to start making brochures for all the other ones.
Well, you got the exposure, then that's good. That's, and people are there, and that's what we want. We have a full board, it's great.
Could I make a comment about something completely different that we need to think about?
Go for it.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Well, most of you probably realize in the back of your heads that we will be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in just a few years, in 26. So it might be well in the next budget session to start adding a little bit of money to someplace. I don't know if it's historic district or if you want to set a different line item so that when it comes time to do something for that, the town of Killingly has some money to properly celebrate.
Actually, Maggie, you kind of, you preempted me. That was going to be part of my manager's report is whether or not the town wants to create a committee around how they want to celebrate the 250-year anniversary of the signing of the Declaration. So thanks for bringing that up. But yes, that is something that we should be looking at as a community. How do we want to represent that? And how do we want to commemorate that coming forward in 2026 and planning around that?
I think the state is starting to think about what they want to represent, that it might not be what we think it is.
They have a commission. They have a commission for the celebration, and so they're reaching out to all the communities to see about having their commissions linked to the state commission. So I think that it would be, good for the town itself to decide how we want to commemorate, but also what do we want to put into the state's commemoration of this as well that represents us as a whole.
Any further comments? All right. I would like to thank each of you for serving. It's always an honor to have residents who are willing to volunteer their time for the community. And thank you for coming tonight and giving us an update on what you have going on.
Basically, I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to say that it's been
Thank you.
a very interesting experience for me so far. I've learned some things, I've learned some things that I just knew nothing about. And it's extremely interesting, like I say, and a worthwhile experience. So I'm enjoying myself.
All right. Glad to hear that.
First of all, thank you for serving, and I think it's fantastic. You have a full board. We don't hear that very often. When do you meet? So the public knows.
The third Thursday of the month. And there are some in-person meetings and some virtual meetings, depending on the time of year.
Okay.
So.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I mean, we do have a very, you're right, we have a very fascinating town.
Yes.
We have a great
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been here for over 300 years, so there's a lot of stuff that's gone through.
That's right. That's right. I agree.
All right. Well, thank you again. Have a good evening. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is 6B, appointment of alternate member to the Northeast District Department of Health.
If I can just kind of give some information on this. So the town of Killingly has 2 regular member seats and 1 alternate seat for the Northeast District Department of Health. Our 2 regular member seats are currently filled. Our 1 alternate seat has been vacant. And so this is to look to fill that vacancy. I don't have an individual listed here, simply because there's several options that the council could consider. The state statute language that dictates a person to be appointed to this, that the council can appoint, it just says a person. So the town council could appoint the town manager as an alternate member to the NDDH, just like the town manager is the alternate appointment to the NECOG board. So that is a possibility. Or the town council, my recommendation would be the town council selects a member of the town council to be the alternate member to the NDDH. So again, completely up to the purview of the town council. So you have options as to, if one of you wants to perform that function, that would be, completely up to you. So that's why there's no name recommendation here. It's completely up to the council.
Thank you. Yep.
Having served on that board as one of Killingly's representatives, I know there was a question at the time that I was nominated because I was already on public safety. I believe Attorney St. Onge at the time reviewed it and said because it's an outside organization, then I could serve both boards. So I have been contemplating going back but there was a reason why I stepped away, and there's just a lot of stuff, but I know I've been talking with Patty, and she seems very interested in it, and I'd like to nominate her as the alternate to the NDDH board.
Thank you.
I'll second that nomination.
All right. So we have a nomination and a second to appoint Patty George as the alternate member of the Northeast Department District of Health. Any discussion? I will say Patty definitely has my full endorsement. We've had several discussions about this, and I think she will do a phenomenal job.
Well, right now with everything that's going on in NDDH, we need somebody that's not that Dave and, why can't I think of his name? Thank you, Sean. And that name was really right there on the tip of my tongue, too. The Dave and Sean, I know that they have no problem speaking up, but we also need, we need more people willing to speak up, because, I was at the last NECOG meeting, and as it's very well public knowledge, there was a vote of no confidence in the director of NECOG, not NECOG, NDDH. And so it's very important that we have very strong voices in our town willing to say the hard things as necessary, too.
And that was one of the concerns expressed by one of our regular members, is that if one of them is unable to attend, they wanted to be sure that Killingly had full representation. Yeah. So making sure that that alternate position was filled, it allowed still to make sure that Killingly had full representation vote on that at any meeting, as opposed to, if one of them was unable to make it. So that was their expressed concern, was making sure that that alternate was filled.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelsky.
Do all the towns have representation or are there open spots?
I believe that there are still some open spots from some of the towns, and I haven't looked at the recent slate of who's been appointed, who's appointed and which towns might still have open slots. I know that because of the timing in which many of the meetings are held, some of the representatives from some of the towns can't make it because they're working. So it does become challenging for some of the towns to have their representation present at those meetings.
But given the situation over there, that means there's issues with quorums and voting.
So they haven't had an issue with quorum.
Okay.
They've been able to get enough for quorum. They have not had a problem with quorum. But again, typically their meeting schedule is once a quarter. They have not been meeting monthly for quite some time. More recently now, they're calling special meetings because of the circumstances that they're currently facing. But they typically have only been meeting on a quarterly basis.
And that's a tough go with the situation over there.
And I will say Patty has been attending all of those meetings of recent, so she has been, well apprised of circumstances and conditions.
Also with the voting scenario, because we're not part of that group, but we have rules of procedure, certain votes have, it's not just a majority, it's a,
Like a supermajority?
yeah, that, I don't know, that would be among the group of people that are on board, that would come out in that.
That would be dictated, I believe, by their bylaws.
I don't think that
I don't
was
think
part
that
of
I don't think that they have, I think all of their requirements are just by simple majority. I don't think that they have anything that would require a supermajority, but I haven't dived
I
that
just-
deep into all of their
Right,
specific regulations. Their attorney would provide.
I'm just throwing that out there, given, that's a tough, right now, it's a tough area. And if we're not apprised of that,
And I will say that both of our regular member representatives have been very attentive to these meetings as well. They have been attending every meeting as well. So, and I appreciated their attendance at all of these meetings, even executive board meetings that essentially we all get kicked out in the hallway to sit because they're in executive session. It's like the Killingly crew in the hallway. So, but they've been attending. So they've been very attentive and attending. They've been reaching out to me before every meeting. We've been having conversations. They attended with me. I had a meeting with the NDDH, a representative from NDDH to talk about community assessment needs. They participated in that as well. So our regular members have been very active in their participation.
Which, having served on that board for a number of years, not every town is like that. A lot of them, particularly the smaller ones, they just, that's probably some of the people that don't have representatives there. I know like Eastford and actually Union was always pretty good. I mean, it's probably the smallest one that's in the group, but they're but yeah, some like Eastford and Hampton a lot of times wouldn't have a representative. So, but Killingly is one of only 2 towns. Plainfield has 2 reps, and then Killingly has 2 reps, and we also have an additional one. The borough of Danielson actually has a vote as well. So,
And their position is filled as well as their alternate, the borough.
So what I will say is, well, one, you guys know I'm not worried about controversy. And I do speak my mind. I think it's important that we have representation at every single meeting. I think transparency may be an issue over there, without speaking out of turn, but from what I have witnessed at meetings, and I think Dave and Sean do a fantastic job, but it is important we have a voice that we can share amongst ourselves and with other towns, because I believe what's happening over there, something needs to be fixed. So I appreciate the nomination and I accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
yeah, because we pay a substantial amount, as we're
Yes.
we're charged on a per capita basis. We went through that when we were looking at the budget. The original ask was way out, and then they came back with, but then again, I don't know what the needs are. That's another issue, because it's a revolving door of personnel over there also, so it's.
Yeah, I think it's a culture over there, and I believe that per capita ridiculous number that got thrown out is what really, I mean, there've been problems for a long time, but I think that really started the conversation, and that's where I myself wanted to start dialing down, because yeah, things have to change. So.
for the longest time, we were the lowest per capita. We're no longer. the lowest anymore.
Well, you gotta keep people, you gotta pay them, you know.
Yeah.
salary.
Well, you do have to
Yeah.
pay it, but, you know,
Right.
there's 10 essential health services that have to be provided, and what the community and education person did is facilitated there's multiple health coalitions in the area that helped NDH achieve the 10 essential health services without actually costing extra money. So like, you know, NOW, which takes, you know, exercise for kids and health. Health Quest is another one in the area that works towards, you know, community health issues. There's a number of them in the area, and I know Linda did a lot of work coordinating and keeping them all in the loop, which was one of the reasons why we had the lowest per capita. I remember when one of the new, actually, I think it was about 3 Department of Public Health commissioners ago, he came up and he was totally impressed by it, because we had a whole slide presentation we showed him about how we got our 10 essential health services for the cost set. And he goes, he was impressed, and then about 2 years later, he came out with nobody could possibly provide all 10 health services for a cost of, and he literally quoted the price, our per capita for NDDH, and I was like, no, nothing like being thrown under the bus, but the state, but we did the work, and the work was getting done. And actually, for the longest time, their inspections were well over 50%. They really they targeted it, and they were getting them done. And now that I think that it's some really
20?
Yeah, it's
21?
very, very abysmal, and that's not good. So
But it seems like when you talk to the restaurant owners, they don't wanna be referenced. You talk to the septic installers, they don't want their name associated, because it's, whatever issues are going on, they don't want any more, and so they don't wanna come forward. They, you know, it's, even by the way, they don't even wanna talk to me too much. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get involved, because it's, somehow we've gotta get that out there, and I don't know how to get these people to come forward to say there's a bigger issue than I think we realize. But appreciate you accepting, and it was an interesting conversation the other night. It was,
Yeah.
you know.
I think when you, and I'm just gonna be blunt, when you determine that $4 per capita increase is a good idea, and you get the kind of pushback you received, and now you just terminate out of the blue a 22-year exceptional employee, I mean, it just makes no sense. So I think like the people you're talking about, Ed, and other people that have been affected negatively by what's happening, we have to be their voice. We absolutely do. So whatever, happens over the next, till the end of the year or whatever, people need to be comfortable speaking up. And I think, I have no problem speaking up.
But then,
So, and hopefully more people will do that.
But we have contributed to their budget. Now, I don't know, Mayor, if we're gonna be cut back now that this personnel is gone, are we gonna get the services that we didn't think, we weren't getting the services we thought we were supposed to get, but this may be even a bigger, and I don't know how you put a value on that. It's,
Well, I think that's a bigger conversation,
So-
right?
Yeah.
About what direction and path that Killingly may want to have around their health services that they're receiving, and whether or not they continue to, contract with NDDH to provide those 10 essential services. If you want to look at alternative options and what that might look like, right? I think that's a bigger conversation outside of appointing an alternate to their board, right? That I think is a separate, larger conversation.
I've got a question on that. So if at some point in the future there was a transfer, does the board just go to the next vendor?
No. No, so, there's in exploring a bit of this over the spring, the options essentially are for a town to see if another health district will absorb or take on your town, if you can join another health district, which means you would appoint representatives to whatever new health district board, and have your voice in the same way that we have with NDDH. My current understanding is that's not really an option.
Okay, so the current board would be dissolved and then it would
Correct.
kind of start over.
You would have to
Interesting.
restart
Thank
with
you.
whatever that configuration is. If you have a health district versus just a health department.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 6C, consideration and action on a resolution to authorize the town manager to execute the supplemental application and certifications as required for the Connecticut Department of Transportation Local Bridge Program as they apply to the following bridge number 68002 Valley Road over Mashantuck Brook, bridge number 68003 Valley Road over Whetstone Brook, and bridge number 68009 Bear Hill Road over unnamed brook. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Randallsky, seconded by Mr. Wood. Ms. Clorio, can you go over this, please?
Sure, so we've been in the design phase and approval stage for these projects. So these are 3 really culvert replacements. They're bridge replacements only because they go underneath the road, but they're culverts that we're replacing in 3 locations. These projects were approved 5 years ago? Something. 2016. Okay, so it's been a while since these projects have been approved. They were stuck at the Army Corps of Engineers for quite some time, the Army Corps of Engineers. So we've had this is a 50-50 local bridge program that they're currently being funded under. We've had to apply for several extensions under that funding program because they've been stuck at Army Corps of Engineers for review. Army Corps finally released them for us to go out to bid on them earlier this year. We went out to bid. We are currently starting construction on them, but we're getting ready to meet the timeline for needing to do another extension. So DOT has, I provided you that the form documents, and part of those form documents is essentially this resolution stating that that I'm authorized to sign any extension documents is basically what it boils down to. So we are under contract with Northern Construction for the replacement of all 3. The 2 on Valley Road, they're going to start with the one over Mashantuck first, correct? The one over Mashantuck is getting started first. That one I think is going to be starting in the next couple of days. Well, not next. They're in the next week. Next week they're going to be starting that one. And then they will move on to the next one, which is going to be the one over Whetstone. And then lastly, the one on Bear Hill will be the final one. So we're currently under contract. So if we do not submit these documents for extension, we lose the 50%. Right? So advisably, it would be important for us to get this extension in.
I would automatically assume there'll be road closures while this construction's going on.
Yeah, we will have detours. Engineering's working on those with Northern right now. I'll be getting the first set of detour plans in tomorrow. Thursday we'll be putting out initial warning signs to let people know detours are going to be happening. We'll be posting the detour map on the website, on the Facebook. When I go on Winnie, I'll bring it up on Winnie, make sure that Winnie gets it as well. So that way, we can get people routed. We'll share it with all emergency services so everybody is aware that the bridge is that'll be out through the culvert replacement
Do they have
timeframe.
an estimate on a time frame to how long it'll take to do each
Well-
one? You suspend the rules, allow Mr.
that's right, 70,
Oh.
70 to 75 days for, right. We're still trying to get box culverts have to get in. Yeah, we're still waiting for box culvert for Reynolds Street, but we're working on sewer main replacement.
So how are we, budget-wise, you know, given you look at the numbers here, you know, substantial increases, how are we?
So we are meeting the 50% right now. If we lose the 50% grant funds, then we have to go back to look for additional funding.
But I mean, even with,
We are within budget
okay, all right,
currently.
okay.
We are within budget.
This has been long overdue. This is long.
Agreed.
long Overdue.
Agreed. I thought we had approved these before I left as finance director. I thought they were part of one of our last.
Something is way back, yes.
We can't even dredge in Owen Bell because Army Corps.
Yeah, we're
is
still
involved.
waiting for Army Corps on Owen Bell. Well, they're all still working remotely.
How did they do that? You would think that would be a job they can't do that.
But, so yes, that would by and large, that was a huge holdup on this project was, Army Corps. Just took a very long time, so we had to keep extending and, so that's the request, to be able to get this in as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the agenda. Next item up is 7A, executive session for the town manager evaluation.
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session, including the town manager and the entire council.
Thank you. Motion has been made by Mr. Cottula,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Wood. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We are moving into executive session. It is currently 7:49 PM.